In this episode of Film and Show's Adaptation, Fantastic Vengeance Edition, we talked about Punisher. I've read 4 Punisher books. I wished I read more, I just didn't have the time. That was my homework. So this one we got Wolverine, a really enjoyable one with people cut to pieces, really dark. Punisher is usually dark. That one is from the 80s, Circle of Blood. We got a lot of people trying to recruit Punisher into their cause, and Punisher's like, you know what, you guys hand innocent lives, so I will not help you out. That was quite fun. Now, welcome back. We got a lot of very interesting and colorful character from that book that are translated very well into the 2004 Punisher movie. Highly recommend that reading if you like that 2000 movie. Now, that Punisher is great. That Punisher is 3 stories. The Slayers, up is down, black is white. There's a furry story somewhere. And yeah, I think my favorite is clearly Welcome Back, Frank. If there's one Punisher book I'd recommend reading, it's that one. I did laugh so much. The dark humor in this is so dark. We can think it's from Africa. I don't know if that pun was good, but yeah. I enjoyed that book, and it was adapted quite well. And we are live talking about 3 movies this time around. 3 Punisher movie. How are you today, D-Lord?
I have been good. See, it's not that I didn't know of the one, because I don't know if you know this. They're going to be remaking. They're going to be doing Masters of the Universe, which is another revamp of the '80s. But it's like the Punisher film. It's forgotten about, but it's done in the same style, but different. Less death, but you chose. When I asked, what 3 did you want to go over? Now you chose the obvious one.
We go through all of these 3 movies. I've rewatched all of these. Well, actually, the
Come on.
89. That was my first time watching ever. But
they're remaking Masters of the Universe, and the only other time Masters of the Universe has ever been done in film form has been the really old '80s version that they're going to be redoing.
Oh, that thing! I'm off.
Jared, you need to see that one.
Master of the Universe doesn't really interest me, but hey.
But you gotta understand that is an era of, like, when you're talking, like, I would hypothetically say, it's funny because when you look at, let's say if we start at '89, that film has a weird thing. Like, it was greenlit at '89, but it wasn't really collectively released till '91.
Really? I didn't know that.
It had different releases. Now, it was coming in on the tail end of the '80s because most people are familiar with the '89 Batman, it's the last holdover. Like, the '89 Batman was the last holdover Batman to what is known as the modern era, which is the Frank Miller style. So the '80s Punisher, right, was literally the '80s Punisher as he was in the comics. Now, you do reference a couple of other stories, because now most people don't like talking about the one.
Circle of Blood. And I'll also tell this. It was very different from Circle of Blood. But yes, we indeed start with Punisher 1989. So what did you think of Punisher 1989?
Strangely enough, I had to rewatch it. It has the cheesy 80s action flick thing going on. And the third act, I will say, when I say it, it's not condemning it. It's just not good. Like, But you start to see it. But no, it is as the story, as I said, it's the Punisher as he was in the 80s. The Punisher in the 80s is a very different Punisher to what we know today. I want to say that's the Baron run. I have to look back when Baron was on it. Most of the iconic parts of the Punisher people know comes from the Max runs or the Mike Baron runs, or I think it's Keown was on it. I think, don't quote me. Keown's more Hulk, but it's the era, and he is a very different Frank. Like the idea, because he is still the Vietnam era Frank. When you're the Vietnam era Frank is still the leftover remnant of early 70s Iron Man. 70s Iron Man was scarred by the Vietnam era as well, and a chronic alcoholic. So it is an 80s action flick. It does have that. It does have more expose. But at the same time, it committed the 80s sin of mixing up. Like, okay, it's the Yakuza. Like, okay, they had no knowledge of the comics. Now, culturally, it's still in the era of what you call the Yellow Panic. Or, like, what was that? Things go after Big Trouble in Little Chinatown type thing. Where the yellow, like that, but they get it's a minor nitpick. They get the Yakuza and the Triad mixed up, but details. But it works for the plot. And it's just 80s Punisher as he was without the storytelling. And it's a fine art of a lost film. It has its story. It's rooted in it, and it got people back into the comics. It is one of the things that led to the revamping of the comics in the early 90s, which some of the ones you reference. But it is also, if you notice, every character to play the Punisher plays it in an iconic part. They do it well. Even if you look at the Daredevil version, which we're going to be getting the Daredevil or the Netflix version of it, whatever.
Eventually, not today, but
no,
eventually
because I think I just saw news. I don't know the new actors' names. I'm terrible with names.
John Bernthal.
Yeah. He is going to get his own. They've already confirmed it.
He isn't everything. That's funny. And what's tragic, he always plays the same kind of greedy,
the thing
moody,
is, he's a good Punisher.
Angry guy.
He is a good guy. Because the Punisher costume is already out. But largely, this is also coming from... He's going to be bigger in season 2 of Daredevil. That's the thing. Daredevil, the new series. He's going to be big.
Yeah.
And then he is supposed to get... There's the question of whether or not he's actually going to... because the costume for the new one's already been... you could say it's already been released. So we already know, but a lot of you're seeing the reworks of the Punisher. But the problem is, it's going to be the story. Does it touch Warzone? The thing is, we're going to go over today is the 89, the 2004, which was the early 2000s version. You said I think it was based on Welcome Home Frank, but I can't say that for sure. Then you also have Warzone, which is another very big book. As well,
I didn't have a chance to read it actually.
It's a dark. Like the thing about the Warzone movie, strangely enough, it's a Marvel, but it was the groundwork for Deadpool. Now,
that's surprising.
Here's my theory on this. Marvel was afraid to make rated R.
So they tried it with Warzone.
Punisher, you can't really do a PG-13 story.
That's true.
Look at the 80s version. Like
every version I've read, like some version, like people are cut into pieces.
No, we're not just talking Like, if he feels like, I think the 80s version, like, what's funny is they left out of like some of the series, like you see it in the 89. There's literally the line of, it's like, what happened to you, Frank? The idea is because in this version, it's based on it. He was supposedly dead and didn't get the vengeance. Now, they don't really. I mean, if this was 10 years later, they would use something from the comics. But this is part of the era that inspired what would become the 90s revamp of a Punisher. But it's also a holdover relic when the 80s Punisher was just a pure vigilante because he played a role in, see, we've covered, what is it, The Man Without Fear, the Daredevil story that was originally in Born Again. He plays a part in Born Again. This is the same Daredevil you're supposed to. This is the same Punisher, in fact. This style of Punisher. Kingpin at one point recruits him, and he willingly goes, oh, I want to go kill vigilantes. Kingpin, during a storyline, basically recruits him for that purpose. So it's not like he's 100% a good guy. So it's just a thought. It's a period piece, but it is also a capsulization like the 89 Batman was. It was right on the tail end of the 80s, right from the transition. And I do recommend it. And you don't have to have comic knowledge going in because the film explains itself. But it was a gateway into redoing this stuff.
So. That's true. And I will also say this. We get the same character, but the story itself is very different from the comic I've read.
And the irony is, you wouldn't know he was the Punisher because he's known as Drago from Rocky. That's the scary. And I think he also played in Masters of the Universe. This is why when I said if they redo Masters of the Universe with He-Man, you need a giant meat of a man, right? Like if you redo Conan, you need the man to be a meathead. And this guy is one of the last holdovers because when you think of the unremorseless Punisher, that yeah, he realizes he may die, but it's also a movie that you couldn't get away with now. Like, I think you would have a lot of edits. So
that's true.
You got to realize brutality. Okay. Let me just say this: the brutality in it, given about the '90s treatment, it would have been Pulp Fiction before we knew it.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. So I guess that's my goal now. I had only 3 issues with the 1989 Punisher movie. The first issue, I will sound like a broken record. This is so often an action flick. People could not aim in the trap laid by the enemy. It was laughable. It was hilarious. It was insulting to the viewer. My second issue, more of the same. Once again, the bad guys couldn't aim. My third issue, plot armor on Castle in the last 20 minutes. He sustained crazy amount of damage, yet he survived massive beatdown while bleeding out against the girl or the last big bad. That kind of annoyed me, but outside of these 3 issues, I was quite entertained. The action was very fun. If you don't think about what you're watching, it's peak. It's what you're asking for a punishment. People dropping like flies. Now, a few things I did enjoy is it was entertaining how Frank died when he became Punisher. It was like the idea of Frank is no longer there. It's only the Punisher. And that's something very comic book-like because in every comic I've read, he's not really Frank. He is named Frank, but he's just the Punisher. That's his life. Now, the next thing to mention, the girl being strong-headed was cool. I really enjoyed that, like that Yakuza or Triad, that bad girl. She was quite fun.
It's Yakuza, but it's real easy. You don't have to know. You don't have to know it. I want to say they wanted, and I was gonna look up when they introduced the idea of the hand. Like, if that was a later incarnation, that would have been the hand. Like, you see, like in the daughter, you see the Electra vibes. If you know of the '80s Electra, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, like, if you know what you know,
To be honest, I didn't read lots of Daredevil yet because I didn't cover Daredevil yet on this show. But
you
eventually, I
know
will.
Electra goes hand in hand with that side of the universe.
Yeah, I know.
But
I've known her from the Daredevil TV show, but that's the most I know about
and
Elektra.
then most people know her from the Jennifer Gardner film.
I've also seen, I've seen the Daredevil movie where Elektra is in, but I didn't see her terrible movie. I cannot wait to cover that.
What is
Actually,
that?
that will be
No,
funny.
that's a Ben Affleck version of Daredevil.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that was terrible. Anyhow, to get back on track,
Mm-hmm.
the Punisher. I really enjoyed how the lead detective didn't want a partner. That was kind of cool. That's a trope in cop like movies. Um, I see through my notes the music was really good. That's like one of the highlights of that movie in my books. Um, the kids felt like kids, and the fight throughout the movie are really really enjoyable. And well shown how Frank was a mess. Like the movie was really good at showing things over telling. And the violence of that movie really felt like the comics. So well made violence. It's very gory and it's borderline horror like. And again, I think the bad guys in that movie were very good, and I see the humor was solid in my notes. So I think overall that movie is just great. There are issues, but it's very fun entertainment, and I understand why people would be drawn into reading the comics after watching such a movie. It's a fun trip with someone that has vengeance in his blood, and it's literal vengeance because like he likes to, I don't know how to say it and remaining YouTube friendly, but he likes to
Should
make the
first
fun
ask question.
last.
This is the version of the Punisher you see. That's the iconic version of the Punisher that you kind of see the line of in, was it the animated version of the animated series that we all grew up on? Like, he is the version Marvel bases on of he was a as I said, everyone thinks he's dead, and he just shoots first and asks questions later. It's like when you see the scene where he's dealing with the mob people, like that first montage, it has the '80s cop drama in it, but like during this scene where the guy just gets back out of the courtroom, booted a knife, it's just slash here, stalk the house, stab the guy, move on to the next guy, and then blows up the place. And you're like, huh. And there's every part of this film, right up until the part where he starts realizing maybe there's still Frank in there when he has to rescue the children.
I like that part.
He's just
Rescuing the
vengeance.
children, that's clearly a Frank moment. Punisher wouldn't rescue people.
I will say though, the weird drunken thespian that looks like a John Constantine from DC without the British Cockney accent. Don't tell me you didn't see that. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, is that the Kenny Reeve Constantine you're talking about?
No, okay.
Or the
Do you
Sandman
know like
one?
DC, like when they do Constantine? Constantine is often depicted as
British.
like a British drinking, swilling, like,
But there's only one British that was adapted that way, and that was Matt Ryan in his own TV show. I don't remember any iteration being like him.
Okay.
The Sandman was a female, and Keanu Reeves was Keanu Reeves.
You've never okay. You have never seen the Justice League animated television show. Okay.
I will be honest. I
Never.
rarely have seen animation.
Okay,
Even
that's
as a child,
Yeah.
that wasn't part of my repertory. I think the only comic related cartoon I happened to see was the Spider-Man comics, but that's a long time ago,
So
and I can't remember
when I make
anything.
the reference to a lot of stuff, like a lot of DC, the DCEU is inspired by like John Constantine, like so the idea of the drunken person, like you'll see if you're familiar with 80s movies, you'll see it in the Punisher film. It's the trope because this is also the era of Highlander, right? Where you have the Connor McLeod kind of look. So it's not necessarily it's a weird roles, but like when you see it, but it's also a trope film. So it's a
Yeah,
strange thing. But what's weird is if you ask someone, is it a Punisher film?
it
It's a
feels like one.
Punisher film. It is the Punisher that I mean, it's like the comics without the dialogue, but it's
Yeah,
up there. So
yeah.
it's a good
So
movie. It's hard to find, but you gotta look at that shit online, and then it's like you said, that's like it's a relic timepiece. So it's like
I don't have a lot more to say about that original Punisher from 1989.
oh, let me say this too before I forget. The trope of the fucking things can't shoot. I mean, you're going to learn like that's not like that
I've seen
style
so
of
many
gun.
action flick, dude, recently. Like I've been
Never
going through
watch
Rambo,
80s.
I've been going through Expendable, I've been going through
Oh.
Underworld. Dude, my
You're
eyes
okay.
are
You're
bleeding, my head
familiar
hurts.
with the later because the problem if the '89 version of Punisher gets lost in the mix is it suffers from the '80s action flick problem where the gunplay looks like crap and we're not quite to the Predator
Yeah.
era yet, where like the Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger and
The
Platoon.
original Predator was rock solid, and I
Because
have a hot take. The second one was also very good.
okay, so here's the thing. It suffers from that '80s Miami Vice era, so you gotta forgive it because this was a shooting style. It plagues so
I
many
don't
'80s
forgive that.
music.
I shall not forgive on that. Anyhow, I don't have a lot more to say, and we
You're
have
good.
two other
We're
movies
both
to
good.
get through. So I will ask you, what are your final thoughts, and what would be your grade out of 10 for the
Strangely
original
enough,
Punisher?
I knew this existed, but going back, strangely enough, I do give it a 10 out of 10 because mostly it's the plot. But then again, I am an old Marvel person. So, but then again, I grew up on this version of Punisher. There's a reason Punisher was not adapted in the children's shows during the Marvel animated block.
It was too violent.
It's too violent. That's the
Yeah.
long story short. It is way too violent for because it's like the Deadpool and Wolverine. It's like Deadpool.
Daddy, mommy, what did the guy do to the other guy? Oh, don't look at
No, you
that.
can't. Because and this is when you see the Mike Barons and other people. They wrote and they were inspired by this. So you got to understand, '80s, the tail end of the '80s was the last time you saw a lot of superheroes till they were done, and the only time you ever see a really similar version of Frank Castle is when you get to Franken Castle or the one probably early to the I would say it's the Max series. Everyone knows it for because it's still. But that's usually what I say. It's a good one. I do recommend finding it. Now, I don't
Yeah.
recommend rest of the. I don't recommend the Captain Americas and the other stuff. I wouldn't subject himself to from the '90s, but hey, that's nice.
I will say this. That was my favorite Punisher movie. And I'd say in live action, it's probably my favorite Punisher overall. Because the TV show, let's be honest, the first season was okay. It was enjoyable at best, but the second season was a train wreck. Anyhow, I will give Punisher 1989 a 9 out of 10. I think it's a solid movie. I highly recommend this thing. Now, that being said, let's get into Welcome Back, Frank. Punisher 2004, a really good flick. What did you think of Punisher 2004?
2004 has a weird take. Like it suffers from. You can okay. There's a trope in Marvel. Marvel does not. So I'm going to be a little controversial here. Modern Marvel, you could see it with Punisher. Oh, see, so we touched on how violent the Punisher was in the 80s. A lot of military guys, a lot of cops, a lot of people who go into law and order or they go into soldiers or special forces all admire Punisher. Marvel does not, in a period, especially after recent years, doesn't like the way he is depicted. And this suffers from that weird transitionary era in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, where some people said Frank Miller was way too violent. You could keep it in the comics, but you cannot translate it to the big screen. Like, I find some of the villain fights cool, but I also find, like, John Travolta as the main villain isn't bad. The issue itself is the villains are near comedical. It's kind of like you wanted to tell a darker story because this is the Frank Miller, not the Frank Miller, but the Frank who was probably an Iraq War veteran or a Gulf War veteran. This was when they were revamping their heroes or their anti heroes to represent the time. He suffers more from PTSD versus the whole thing. And if I give the film any worse, it's because it's in that weird thing of they didn't want to adapt it. They wanted, if they went for Max or the other, that's when they pulled out the stops. Because of the response and the success of 2004, they went into Warzone. See, it's surprisingly Warzone they let be the modern Punisher. So, Punisher is, but there is a lot more PTSD into it. A lot of the roles are more comedical. You have a lot of really good actors in there. Because for one of the actors, when I had to rewatch it, was literally the captain in the reboot to Battlestar Galactica. I can't think of his name right now. But the idea was John Travolta's in it. Parts of the stuff are too comedical for Punisher, but they also wanted to make it lighthearted. So it's a weird thing. It's that, but it suffers from that weird transitionary period. Marvel was going from the Blade formula, which was semi-violent with humor, right before they were going to go to the Marvel humor. If that makes sense. I'll let you go. I think the film suffers from too much of that.
Interesting.
It suffers from that transitionary period of Marvel.
I feel you. That's an interesting point of view. Now, let's get into it. Before I really share my issues with this movie, I will say this as a side note. Piercing Guy was miscast. He is a decent actor, but he didn't bring the same level of aura as the other neighbors. And I feel like every neighbor really feel like these characters we get to meet in Welcome Back, Frank. I think everyone except for the piercing guy was well cast. And again, I think the actor himself with the piercing, he did a good job, but he just didn't feel as solid of a casting as his fellow co-stars. And maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Now let's get into my issues with this adaptation of Welcome Back, Frank. My first issue was Frank Castle was immortal as he got shot many times and didn't die. Massive plot armor. Now, number two, plot convenience. Someone found bleeding out Frank Castle in the middle of nowhere by night. Amazing, all convenient. I know we need him to be saved and all, but like, come on. Try a bit harder, please. My third issue would be plot armor on both characters during the apartment fight. Speaking of the apartment fight, I quite enjoyed it despite the massive plot armor, and it was a cool thing because it also happened in the Welcome Back Frank comic.
Which apartment fight? The Russian
Where they
that looks
destroyed
like a Popeye, or the
when they destroyed the apartment and he basically fell off the stairs, and that's all the bad guy died by
Is that
falling off the stairs.
the Russian Popeye? How do you not like that? He looks like
I,
a Russian version.
I said it. I liked it. That's what I
No,
said.
let me say this though. I think the barmaiden slash disabled guy. That's why I said they're weird and awkward. Maybe it's because I didn't know it was.
But D-Lord, what I'm saying is I don't like the massive plot armor they had. But the action itself, the fight itself, when you just turn off your brain, it was a fun fight. And it reminded me of the comics. And in the comics, I will share something that might be funny for people who haven't read it. It will be very hard for me to explain what happens, but basically, the fat neighbor at the end of the fight, he basically fall on the bad guy, and he crushes him, and the guy chokes underneath the fat guy, and he died by obesity. Basically, that's kind of dark and funny at the same time, and like after 20 minutes of the fat guy just crushing and choking the Russian, Frank is like, we will wait another 20 minutes to make sure he doesn't breathe anymore. it's like the pillow scene, but the pillow this time around is the fat guy. In the comic that was like priceless. So to have the bad guy just die in the staircase, that was a bit underwhelming. But I enjoyed the action itself. But it's like when compared to the comic was so hilarious. Using a fat guy as a pillow to choke a bad guy. That's like you only get to see that in Punisher comics. That's so gross. That's so hilarious. That's so dark. That's so wow. That's unique. There's
I
nothing else
mean,
out
the
there.
idea of the fat obese comic book character outside the Blob. I think the criticization of like Ironheart is the drag story. The RuPaul's Drag Race actor was playing a character who is known in the comics as Slug, which is comedically fat, and that's nice. But like the idea, there's a part where that's why I said this is where I'm saying the humor doesn't always match the tone, and this is where I said this movie pays the price. It is a Punisher film, but they didn't want to go full Punisher.
Yeah,
Then they have really good villains. Don't get me wrong.
That's true.
It's just, and the disabled guy that kind of is like, okay, I might be in the minority with you on this. I think they're awkward. It's because I've seen that one actor that plays the fat dude.
Yeah.
I swear, other films, I know that face from that era because I want to say it's the same guy from Demolition Man and other films. And I'm like, He was like the what is that? I would say Gina McCarthy of that era.
Yeah.
So you think of her name, the one that was in, and she's weird in roles. So
So, to get back on track, my fourth issue plot convenience. The piercing guy finding the switch to the hiding by accident, and there's an easy fix. Have Frank telling him in the dialogue prior, mash it with another part of dialogue, so there's a switch. But now, like, how would they think? Oh, there's a switch if there's no proper setup. Not a fan. Now, my final issue with this 2004 Punisher movie. Plot armor on Frank during the last firefight. That's recurring with Punisher apparently. Now, here are a few likes. I think the PTSD was well shown. It was great. The action by the last 20 minutes, despite some of the plot armor, was wonderful. Again, I think when you get to watch a Punisher movie, if you can turn off your brain, it's amazing. Great action. Um, Now another thing that's another enjoyable thing. Nice strategy of losing both retirement and family over vengeance, creating the Punisher. And I'll also say that Punisher monologue, nighttime was great. The bad guys, they had charisma. They were solid. We need more of that action flicks. Um, because again, I've seen so many action flicks recently, and I plan on making so many videos. I just don't have the time, but eventually, lots of video will be pumping out, and action flicks will be talked about. But again, bad guys, they were cool, and the movie was great at showing overtelling. The lore was cool with nice visual and dialogue. The neighbor were entertaining. The jokes, when we had joke, I feel like they landed very well. Um, and the plot against Frank family as retaliation for his undercover mission was kind of cool. And I think overall, the Punisher 2004 is a very good movie. It's a very good movie. It's not as good as 1989. I don't have a lot more to say, to be honest. I think most of the casting, outside of the Pearson guy, they nailed it. And I really felt like it was welcome back Frank, because it's the same apartment, the same neighbors, and at the end, Punisher just leaves them money so they can have a happy after, uh, to like overcome the trauma they went through. That's great. And I know that movie was also inspired by a 1994 run, I believe, of the Punisher. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to read that run, but I will ask you: did you read the run in the 90s for Punisher?
which one?
The 1994. Let me just look into
What's
it.
the name of it?
Uh, Punisher.
You're kind of forgetting. I have to date my I date my reading because I may have started off as a DC person.
Yeah.
And I
So I'm
grew
looking
up.
into it. I'm looking into it right now, and trying to be very fast on finding the right
You're
intel.
yeah. If you can't there's a certain run. Here's the thing about Punisher. Punisher is often rebooted for an era or whoever writes them. Like Mike Barron is the example I use. Most people know what is Punisher Max.
The miniseries, The Punisher Year One. The film's story and plot were mainly based on two Punisher comic book stories: the 1994 miniseries Punisher Year One by writer Dan Abnett and A.D. Laning, and the 2000 to 2001 miniseries Welcome Back Frank. So, Welcome Back Frank is the one I read. The 1994 I didn't read, couldn't find. Um, did you happen to know about that one?
I think if I saw the comic, I would know.
Okay, well,
Because that's the thing about a lot of it. It's not that I don't read. Like, hell, little background about me. When I would play Magic and go into stores, they're inside comic book shops. So you know what we do between rounds? We buy comics. So you get the idea. It's not like I think I was more the X-Men person, but you could go back and read because there's a lot of stuff in Punisher like as younger, and if you go back and you try to find it, it's not as easy because it's often not reprinted. It's kind of like say if you ever want to go into Sandman or Preacher properly,
Preacher, eventually I
good
will.
God, I wish you the luck of reading those books
I'm
because
reading Lucifer right now. It's so different from the TV show. I cannot wait to cover that on the
Lucifer, the
show.
television show,
Yeah,
fun
it's
fact, was based on, I want to say, the New 52 version.
oh
Not the New
really?
52 or the last bit.
I will look into it
That
because
is because there's several versions of
I
it.
I thought there was only one Lucifer, but I will look into it. New 52. Okay, I will look into
It
it. I'm
might be
curious.
before the New 52 era.
Yeah, the one I'm reading is mostly based on L. It's like late 1999 to like 2002, I believe, 2003. It's like 75 issues. Um,
But when you start to go into it, let me find you the proper recommendation because I remember when I was reading, because there was this weird holdover period because many people forget, like in comics, some stuff that's better adapted by DC or Marvel, especially DC, is carries over from Vertigo or
yeah,
Dark Horse.
yeah.
Dark Horse and Sandman.
I'm not touching that thing with the 10-foot pole. I hated the show when I happened to
Okay, here's
see
the
it.
thing. Let me say this for people. Sandman, Preacher, and all of this comes from Dark Horse runs or that. And then they brought Lucifer Morningstar from that universe into the DC universe. Then, of course, he's part of the DC universe. So,
Well, I will look into it. Send me like a title or something. I will look into
yeah,
it.
I'll have to.
Now, this is time we go through a closing thoughts on the 2004 movie. What would be your grade out of 10 for the 2004 Punisher movie?
Strangely enough, I'm going to give it the same rating because I do think it's highly. Like, it's not. I think even Gary, when he was running his comic shop at the time, thought it was a weird film. It's not a terrible film. I give it like an 8 out of 10. Like, it's good, but if you took the early, which looked like Marvel level humor out of it, dear God, it would be an immensely better film.
I feel you, and it's interesting. I also gave this first movie in the 2000 a 8 out of 10. I think it's well deserved. It's a fun flick. I enjoyed watching it. And now I guess we move on to The Punisher or Warzone. I didn't read the comic, unfortunately, but let's talk about that. What did you think of Warzone?
Now, Warzone is the one everyone remembers. It's a side, it was never meant to go into the MCU. It was loosely done right around the same time with the inspiration in mind of the Netflix adaptations, which you have gone over some of them. Like, even my mother started watching the Netflix adaptations, right? The uh that was like a darker version. Warzone is meant to be, it is a very brutal comic, even to this day. So the idea of the storyline and that, it's meant to be a darker, more physical storyline. The actor himself who played it, all these actors that embody Punisher, and this is why the weight, it's kind of weird. Like the weight of the guy in Daredevil now, who is Punisher, even though he fits the Punisher, he himself said it's a pretty weighty role to step into. It's on the level of, pardon the passing of Jared Leto and other people, of being like the Dark Knight's version of Joker. it requires very strong method acting. And Warzone is very brutal, but it is also very good. But it is also, you have to remember, it plays no part in the MCEU. It is entirely a side story, but it is usually well acted to a degree. It has that darkness in it, but it also has certain faults later on. But is a it's a standout film in Marvel as a side project. It's the best way I can say it. It is a holdover, but at the same time, it's also not part of the MCEU project at the time. It's not part of anything. So it's kind of like you can tell the story in the original Joker, but it turned out to be a cult classic later on because because everyone thought at this era they weren't going to do a Frank Castle. But it's sort of the big trick. And that's what Warzone was. So, and it's, as far as acting villains, I think it's overall it's pretty good. Like, it stays the stain of time. In a way, it actually overshadowed the Netflix version for a brief period too. So
I'd say these movies, the three movies we are covering right now, two of them are better than the Netflix show, and one of these two is Warzone. Do you want to add anything else before I go on
no, you're
Warzone?
good.
Okay, so I guess that's my go. I enjoyed Warzone a lot, so here's my first issue with it. In the firefight in the warehouse, the bad guys can aim. That's a trope for me. Number two, in the final encounter, the plot armor on Castle was nasty. Lots of lost blood, and he got shot at him. And let's be honest, we got vest, bulletproof vest. They are there to slow down bullets, but you're still hurt. You can still have bruise. Uh, it's meant only to make sure these bullets don't really pierce through your skin and your bones and all. But even there, it's not like impervious to bullet. It really takes it, and it can injure you underneath it. It won't be as
No,
bad
before
as
I forget, Multi, the Punisher Warzone was done in 2008, and
yeah.
it based on the run of Warzone from 92 to 95. So
Interesting.
it was 4 years after the Punisher film. So it was still in that tail end, very early Marvel pre MCU.
Yeah. But again, to go back to my issue, he got shot so many times on his vest, and why don't you aim for the head? Because that would end the movie right here, right now. But stills, I found that laughable. It's like, oh, they can shoot his arm, his head, but no, they shoot in the vest, and even there, the vest, like, it doesn't seem like impervious. It does seem impervious to bullets. Anyhow, um, I wasn't a fan of that final encounter. Now, the Burning Man had really bad visual effect on him, terrible CGI. And usually I'm someone that tolerate a lot weaker CGI. Like, I mean, I enjoyed most of the CW, and I just found some of the episode with Effie and bad CGI. Except when it's super young, then it's like a lot of it is like that. But um, I'm tolerant of bad CGI. But the Burning Man, I'm sorry, but that was insult to CGI. Um, my fourth issue, Micro's death didn't feel sad because the character was underdeveloped, wasted, and underused. Um, and it was meant to be something big because Micro is Frank Castle only ally. So losing him should be a sad moment. It should be a moment you're like, damn, it happened. I'm sad. But no, it's just, oh, he just died. Okay, move on. The movie is about to end. Not a fan. Now, I said I enjoyed it and I trashed it as of right now, but let's get into it. Soap helping Frank was hilarious. Punisher having doubts about taking an innocent life made sense. The music, I see a trend here. Every Punisher movie had great music. Why didn't the Netflix TV show took a page of these movies? Really, why? Why? Um, Now, the cop stuff that was fun. The interrogation scene was quite cool, and the Punisher doing Punisher stuff was very fun. And the final punchline of the movie was great. Um, the bad guys. Let's mention them. They are solid. They are really cool. We got brothers in that movie, and they are enjoyable. One is a nutcase. The other one is it's just really bad guy. And I
The
think
word you're looking for is jigsaw.
oh really? Oh, you're
So
right.
the villains, right? This is the one everyone remembers because it had the guy as Jigsaw. And to be honest, Jigsaw, everyone knows the side of Marvel, which is like, oh, we're fighting Apocalypse, we're fighting these people, we're fighting the insert superhero villain or that's powered by whatever. Vigilante side of Marvel
Nobody
is
knows that.
really good compared to like DC's supernatural side. Like Daredevil's villains are largely human. They're just behemoths of people. Like Kingpin, like why no one had an issue with depictions of Kingpin, it's like was it Duncan, like Michael Duncan Clark and or other because Kingpin's power is he's a massive street brawler. Jigsaw is a terrifying villain, even in the comics. So you got to understand in multi. And I say like, oh, by the way, before I forget, this is also the film that went realistic. The reason why most people realistically shoot mass or body, that's why you have the plates, right? Because
Yeah.
the plates, and depending what the vests are, they're only as good as the plates. So yeah, like there's also the time, but there's also the point in the Punisher villains. Most of them are all driven by madness or insanity. Either Frank creates them, or it's like why are Batman's villains all insane? Then they have to monologue before they kill him. I mean,
Yeah.
but at some point it does become comedical.
And I gotta say, the highlight of Warzone. I think the apartment scene was kind of violent and great. Where the cop goes alone and Frank escaped the car and he joins in, and that was great. But the final fight in the kind of big stronghold, if one can call it that way, that was great. The action there, wow, wow, peak action. You want an action flick? Go watch that. Um, I think it was a very fun experience. And coming after Welcome Back, Frank, in the 2004, I didn't expect much. I was like, yeah, I like the other two Punisher movies. So if Warzone is bad, it's fine. But I ended up really liking it, and it wasn't anywhere near as bad as I thought it would be. And I was like, you know what? Fun experience. It's unfortunate that I don't have lots more to say, but the action is really the highlight of these Punisher movies, and the villain. I think the villains in this Warzone flick are probably my favorites, or maybe it's still the chick in the first one. Can't remember. I don't know. Fun time, cool movies. I guess this is the conclusion on Punisher right now, Warzone. Any closing thoughts before we share our grade?
I'll say there is a fine art. Before people forget a lot of the stuff before we get what is the MCEU. Like the what we think of as Marvel now is a reflection of the MCEU. But people forget Blade was a test run. As I said, never look up the 90s live action versions of Avengers or Captain America, you'll want to gouge your eyes out. But it's that weird holdover. The issue with like you don't see films like Warzone because this was also in a transitionary period in Hollywood. Like the last time in America we got an actual war film was Fury. Masters of the Air is a series I liked, and that was 10 years. It was the sequel to Band of Brothers. That was last year. And then the thing about it is, a lot of these films represent a different period in Hollywood. They're not quite popular, but it was also controversial. Because to write certain stories, you need it to be successful and based. Even Deadpool and Wolverine, they learned all the wrong lessons from it. Because Marvel, when you need to write a darker version of a superhero, you need to be able to go there.
Yeah.
That's one of those things which Marvel forgot. And one inside baseball as of this year, the reason why Blade keeps getting rebooted, or the script of it, is because they don't know what to do with it. And they're not getting the green light.
I think they should just destroy
They're
the project.
it's
If
no,
you
it's
don't know where you're what you're doing, where you're going, and it's been years, it's like that, it won't change.
no, you don't want the Halo TV show all over again because
Yeah.
like the Halo TV show was like a 10-year purgatory. Either you have a writing staff on the same team, like you're starting to see Marvel come back to some of its roots. Like Fantastic Four is a good start, but Marvel can't needs to not be modern Marvel. You don't need humor. Like, and that's what I usually say. It's a fine art that gets lost. But 10 years, it's a very big difference. But there's also that side you also have to kidify it or ruin it, dumb it down for a general audience because no one just wants the John Wick or the brutal style. But if you have it contained in Punisher or that's probably why a lot of people in comics now have a hard time writing Deadpool. Deadpool is so scarred currently by the Cable run, Deadpool and Cable. Like they've done everything with him. And you either got to write him as a serious character. That's why when people read him in a normal storyline, when he's a serious character versus a fourth wall breaker, that's a very different story. But like with Punisher, you can't really. He's the most morally gray character ever. He's either scarred by PTSD or he's scarred by vengeance. Pick your poison. And that's why these films are good, but you don't see a lot of them from Marvel or even Marvel affiliated studios.
And it's too dark for them, and they should go that route again. Anyhow, I will give Warzone a solid 8.5 out of 10. Slightly better than the 2004 one, but slightly worse than the 1999. What would be your grade out of 10 for Warzone?
Strangely enough, I give it the 9 out of 10. It is not the most perfect, but it is also that period.
Amazing.
It's just as I said, it's a pre-period right before they started the MCEU. It's those weird films you see, Multi. You're finding it out about these films.
Well,
Not
I had
everything was
seen the
CW.
2004 one, and I had seen Warzone in the past, but it was my first time watching the 1989 one.
Yeah, because bear in mind, after a lot of see, I still go by this, and if you ever talk to Will about this and other people around, we all know. So there was a great writer strike around 2008, 2009, It was
I
the
thought that was 2007
2008. I think it was about that period around there.
because I remember Smallville 7th season was heavily
Okay, so
affected
yeah, that
by.
period. But then around this period, you had a whole bunch of people who were really good at their jobs start to leave, or they started to phase out the old blood and get in new blood. Now, this you could argue and say left to Gamergate and what eventually was Comicsgate, which led to reforming of, which led to Comicsgate because Marvel started reforming. The Marvel Comics side started reforming. Um, this is really when you started to see the period of we need to move Marvel in a modern direction.
Yeah,
Where this is a result of, no offense to people who like Miles Morales was a replacement for Peter Parker in the Ultimates universe. And you get the same stuff. And it's a weird thing because there was a weird transitionary period in the studios. Because, like, if you ask, like, Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy was probably never meant to be a serious film. Black Panther was a secret success. And I say this because it was a success of a very high caliber. And this is what you always hear. They go, oh, people at Marvel hate black people. No, it's not that. They didn't think Black Panther would be largely that successful. It just turned out that way. Thor, which was a B-list or a support character for the longest time, Chris Hemsworth turned him into a star. But every single Thor film suffers from him having to discover himself. They don't let heroes be heroes. This is one of the few series of films they let the character be himself. So
yeah,
that's, if you can prove me wrong or
yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. Now, this is a segment I enjoy. Let's do this. So this is the source of material section. I will ask you quickly, uh, which of the three movies we covered tonight you feel is the most comic accurate we had tonight?
I think Warzone's a little bit closer.
And why do you think so?
I mean, you can adapt it. I mean, it's a 1 for 2. It might be. I could be dead wrong. I mean, a lot of these runs you only remember seeing. I may never bought the books, but I read them. It's because you can okay. As long as a comic movie is 1 for 2, I really don't care because the rules of your universe matter. If you don't understand your source material, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's the problem. And I'm finding people are, and if you're not a custodian of your lore or your company, as an example, like Warzone's more probably, I would say maybe closer.
okay. And in the same vein of question, which one of these three do you think is the least accurate among these three movies when you really compare it to the source of material?
I'd have to maybe say it was 04, but then again, I don't think I ever read Welcome Back, Frank, because
You should, because you seem like you know a lot about the comics and all.
it
And
depends on how impactful. Because there's a period with Punisher. Man, have I seen terrible Punisher runs. I'm
again,
not.
I think Welcome Back is my second favorite among the ones I've read. My favorite being the Max Volume 2
Yes,
with
no.
the Slayer slaver and like black is white and up is down. That was my favorite, but my second favorite is clearly that one with Welcome Back Frank. It's just hilarious. Even the ending, the final punchline of it is just priceless.
Never.
I won't spoil it for you, but
By the way, never. By the way, never. Like, if you ever want to see some of the weirdest parts with Frank Castle as an absolute character, like, there's a period where modern Marvel, or we think of modern Marvel, could not write Frank. And I am of the type of, if you cannot at least understand the source material, don't write the book. Please don't. And this is the thing where I don't agree with. Well, okay. I did not agree with Intergalactic Wakanda, which is a run. It's a Ta-Nehisi Coates and a bunch of others who are identity politics. At this point, because of the way they write Black Panther is nothing but a black superhero that is a black supremacist that everyone who writes on it, it's not like there's a refreshing run when you see in the current Storm run. It's written by, like, I think it's like an African guy, or he's a black guy. Forget which, or he's African. He actually understands Storm. But you get that period of 2018, about 2017 to 2019 with Black Panther. They write Intergalactic Wakanda. They don't understand the homework assignment. And it's a weird way of how I judge comics. Because if you don't read it, or you're a custodian to your own lore, you don't want to be red shirt guy, because people don't forget the fame of the red shirt guy from Blizzard came from him correcting the Blizzard devs that forgot their own lore. Now that's just part and parcel. They just reboot a book every 12 months.
I feel you. Now, I will share what I think. I think the most comic accurate I've seen, and again, I don't have the same experience because I didn't read Warzone, but I think the most accurate for me was the Punisher 2004. I think it's not necessarily one to one because the villains are very different in the run, but what happens with the apartment and the neighbors, it's the exact same. It's really like who's that at the helm of the bad guys team that really changes. And I think my the one I think is the least accurate would be 1989. Um, as much as I enjoyed that movie and it's my favorite of these three, I think it's the least accurate one. Um, Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I think as an adaptation, the 1989 is probably an 8 out of 10 if we just speak about adaptation. The 2004, even if the villain are slightly different, the overall story is the same. So I will give like a 10 as an adaptation. It's the perfect adaptation in my books. And Warzone, I think it would be probably a 9 as when it comes to like adaptation because soap really feels like soap. If you would give a grade to the adaptations we got of the three movies, what would be the grades for the three movies? Just in terms of how it adapts.
Without reading them, I mean, I usually say as long as most of them are 1 for 2, it's fine. I mean, I'm not like a purist. As long as you understand the homework, but I also understand. Like, I'd say the grades for the most part, yes, the 89 is probably the most inaccurate of them all. Like, hands down. It is just representation of what Punisher was. And it's strange. It's an homage. Because remember, 80s 80s adaptations, and you will find this a shit ton. are loosely inspired. They're not one for one, they're about one for two. I mean, hell, I challenge anyone in the modern day to go back and look at like uh, Masters of the Universe from the 80s. I mean, my God, but the guy is like, that's going to be insane for people when they finally see that. Because they're going to go, oh, there was a movie already done? But then again, we live in an era, I'd probably put the grades like, I am loosely familiar with Welcome Home Frank, that version, but I'm more familiar with Warzone in the 80s Punisher stuff, in the early 90s, or at least in that era. I am familiar with some of Max, but not all of Max was great. So
I'm about to read all of Max. Anyhow, with this, I think we had a very interesting discussion about the source material and the movies themselves. So let's tease what comes next with the Fantastic Vengeance show we are doing right now. Next week, Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage, the 2007 flick, and the 2011 movie will be the two topics for next week. With that being said, what do you have going on your end of the internet?
in between projects, but I have my game streams. I'm working on doing Awakening till the other, and new seasons will start shortly after. And then I have my side projects. I am going with. I've been working on like current things, like goings on in IRL, like I think the Visa and Mastercard stuff, censorship as a whole. So.
Huh.
Oh yeah,
If you need
that's a
someone,
fun part.
I can join in because I know about censorship. Canada is like
Oh yeah, I've
the
been meaning we
capital
should.
of censorship
Now you know what's
now.
funny? I talked to one of my friend in the UK finally, and it's Smug. He's from the UK. My
That's
guy from the
worse there,
UK.
but we are heading there as well in
And
Canada.
the thing is, if you're ever free one day, I'll just give you like try to schedule it because people who lived under it, like as much as I say artists have the right for freedom and that, but there's also this thing going on with people with I'm all over the government censorship and like why gaming is being censored too now. It's like because if I ever told people years ago, they go, you want to blame the government for passing like if I told you right now, YouTube Australia wants to block YouTube for anyone under 16.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And they also want the ID verification BS. It's hilarious because like people can steal your data, they can steal your identity, they can actually blackmail you if they know your behavior on the internet. It's just so ridiculous. Like liberal governments, they lost their way. They don't realize democracy what it should
So let
be.
me say this though. The funny part about the ID technology, people don't understand. One of the most like used. They've had that prototype for in China. So kids when they want to buy cigarettes underage, literally rip out magazines and they use magazine stars. And China actually did this. So they actually had to change it. It's pretty it's pretty sad but hilarious. But yeah, no, Multi, you'll have to during your thing, and I don't know what television shows. I'm just waiting on Daredevil, the next batch of episodes, which we've already seen the costumes.
You mentioned TV shows. I don't know if you're into Dexter at all.
I've watched Will go over that one. I
Uh,
was never a Dexter person, but
okay, because I will be covering Dexter next month because next month it's the ending of
which
Resurrection.
Dexter? Which Dexter?
I'm covering the entire show. It's like more than 100 of episodes, but I'm covering Original Sin, I'm covering the OG from 2006 to 2013. New Blood. I'm covering Resurrection as well. I'm covering them
Let
all,
me give you a
basically.
word of advice, Multi, if we don't speak on this. The original, there's a separation from the original run when that show ended because Dexter was more of a phenomenon. A lot of these shows, when you see they finally get their, what is it, max reviews, right?
Yeah.
They, what people don't realize is they're like, oh, this looks like good on a TV show, but they don't realize the work and the stuff goes into it. People are older. It's kind of like, it's for example from my experience. Spartacus, Blood and Sand, that was ancient a long time ago. They're finally said about House of Asher. House of Asher is not going to be a faithful following. And we're like, even if it wasn't, we were like, oh, it's not going to totally suck. But we're seeing it. What we're going to be getting is we're going to be getting what looks like tail end identity politics, right? With like
Well, I've seen every Dexter content there is as of right now, and
yeah.
I will tell you this: it's based on amazing books, and the original they did borrowed a lot, and they did adapted a lot of aspects of the books, and they did it very well.
I would say
But it's very different than the books, first of all, and second, every spin-off they did is just a worse version of the original. It's so I don't know what happened. Like they lost the talented people. I
you lost the plot. It's there. There's that point when you're trying to duplicate. You
And not
cannot.
only that, it's sequels. Not only it's that, it's sequels. Even the prequel, they got it wrong because the prequel contradict the books and the original show, but it's meant to be like before the original show, so it's ridiculous. But
No, you don't
we'll
want to
get
go on
into
too
that.
long. It's the
Yeah.
idea, right? With if you're writing a, it's the whole thing of either the you lose the you can't recapture that moment because the reason why like Marvel had burnout at the end of Endgame because that was 10 years of films.
Yeah.
10 years of films and that's a lot. It's not fatigue as much as I arguably say it's just the point that it's like with that was my disappointment. It's like, oh, we're gonna make a sequel to House.
No, don't do that.
Don't
Like
leave it dead.
do a reboot. You see, I'm okay with reboots as long as it's done well. But my big issue with Dexter, and I will then close on that. But
Yes.
my big issue with Dexter, they don't know when to end, and there were only 8 books, and even the original TV show that did borrow and adapted a lot of the books,
How much?
they
How
are
long was the original show?
8 seasons. So I even there, like I feel like maybe if they really wanted to adapt the books, they could have went on for more seasons to adapt the books. But even there, like the show, I feel like the original show, they were like, you know what? After season 5, it wasn't the same showrunner, so they were like, you know what? Season 5 wasn't as well received as the first 4 seasons. Season 6, 7, and 8 also followed that trend. So at some point, they were like, you know what? Let's just um, let's just finish the show. And I will be honest, the ending is underappreciated and underrated. I think the original ending of the show was accurate and it felt like a Dexter ending. It was good, and they also left it kind of open, but it's clear that if they would pick up for a sequel or whatever, the sequel would be very different. But here's the thing: they did happen to do a freaking sequel, and they just don't seem like they want to end anytime soon. And I admit, Michael C. O, the main actor, is wonderful. He is amazing. He carries on the show, even if the show dipped in quality. He carried the show, and he really feels like Dexter, and he is great. But here's the thing: give someone else a chance. And I will admit, Original Sin, the prequel, they captured very well Dexter character, and the recast is actually stellar. The guy is younger, but it truly feels like Dexter, and you can tell the guy understands Dexter as a character. So that's amazing. But here's the catch. Here's the thing. All of these sequel, all of these spin-off, they lost their way, and the team behind the scene is nowhere near as good. And I see something that plagues movies after 2010. As much as I prefer more recent movies, uh, sometimes I see connecting points, connecting dots, especially on the TV side. The dialogue, the some of the characterization just sucks, and some of the dialogue just sucks, and some of the humor just doesn't work. And I'm like, you know what? What happens? 2010, the younger millennial entered the workforce, and the oldest Gen Z as well. And I see a trend there. They don't know how to capture what Gen X and the youngest, uh, or I should say, the oldest millennials captured,
The
and
thing
that's why
is,
it
you need
sucks.
to. The thing is, it goes back to what I'm saying. I've said this before. You write and create from what you know. Most I feel, and this maybe is just the older person who's more judgmental in me looking at this. You can still make banging music. You can still do it. You use the teachers as the guide. And I'm not sure what inspires a lot of modern people. They want to recapture an essence, but it loses it.
And I'll also add this just before we go. Younger people, they just don't watch TV anymore. They don't watch movies anymore. They're all the time on TikTok, brain rotting on YouTube or some crap. They try to capture an audience that's not there. But anyway, um, it's sad because I'm a huge Dexter fan of the books. The books are amazing. They are far better than the show, even the original show that was kind of solid. And I'm sad. So I
Hey,
cannot wait.
remember? Let me say this. Remember, there was something horrifying I heard when they were working on like the Star Wars show. They had to ask somebody what was a someone who was working on a Star Wars show at the time, the movie, entire movie, Force Unleashed. This is obviously younger actors. They had to ask what was a lightsaber.
Wow, are you kidding me?
And
Oh,
you are literally working on the Force
wow.
Awakens, and these were the
Are
runners
you kidding
promoting it.
me?
And
That's ridiculous.
this is a story that is circulated.
No, I don't
And then
believe
you
this
go in
crap.
with Marvel.
I lost faith.
You go in with the Marvel storytelling writers,
But yeah,
where let me just conclude on this with saying the idea is they don't want to hire people to, like, the reason why they brought the people in for Thor is the guy looked at it as a paycheck, not caring about the books, not
yeah.
caring about the source.
But you see, that will be a very interesting discussion we will have. And with this, thank you for watching, and we